We are here at the NEC Blitz studios, coming to Craig D'Amico from the home studio here. He's the voice of the NEC, at least in my humble opinion. Does the NEC Overtime Pod, which you have to catch if you are interested enough that you are checking it with us today. Craig, thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. We've been talking about doing this for a while, so glad that we could finally get together. And the fact that we're talking NEC football has me excited because that means it's getting ever closer. I think we're less than 100 days until kickoff now, so it's the best time of year. So really looking forward to it.
And you're giving me goosebumps. It really is a bit like talking about Christmas morning as it's coming up.
That's right.
So as you can see here to our left, we've got the schedule. We've got what's going to be happening coming up this year. Week by week, we're going to go through the NEC schedule. And we haven't talked about this ahead of time, so we don't really know if we're going to come up with some of the same games or talk about some of the different things happening here.
I do have to tell you, I know that I'm on your show, and I'm sure you're going to be, asking me questions. I might have some questions for you because there's been so much moving and shaking this off season. I'm sure I haven't kept track of all of it like you have. So there might be some questions I have for you as we get this conversation going here.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit me with all you got. I've been deep in NEC football. I would say boot camp mode here. So hopefully I can answer those questions for you. And if you want to get started, do you want first pick on week one, or do you want me to take the reins here?
I'll go into, but before I do want to mention, it's funny because I look at you sent the schedule to me in advance, and just looking at it, I look at it so differently now than, just like 5-10 years ago. Because 5-10 years ago, you look at some of these games that we're seeing here, and you're like, oh, well, they're going to show, NEC team's going to show up, lose by 40, and get ready for conference season. But that's really not the case. You just look at, last year, teams are competitive, and in some cases actually winning games like, Duquesne, Youngstown State, SFU, Kent State. LIU lost by 6 to Albany. Central was in a bunch of games. So a lot of these games that we're going to talk about here, especially on this opening weekend, on paper, 5-10 years ago, you're thinking, oh, they're going to lose by 40. Could be pretty competitive here. So that's part of the excitement. So the first one that stands out to me, and I think you're going to hit on this one too, is that Duquesne Pitt game. You have two teams separated by 2 miles that haven't played each other in like a gajillion years. And Pitt, I'm sure they're a little frustrated by how they finished last season. I think they lost like 6 in a row. Duquesne, they only lost 1 in a row, but it was that one game that counts at the end. So both teams had that bad taste in their mouth from how last year ended. Rivals right around the corner from each other. So that's the one that I have circled here on this opening weekend. I think that's going to be a barn burner.
Yeah, number one for me too. I can tell you, I'm coming to you from the frontiers of the NEC over here and the west side of it with Duquesne, with Pitt. This is my territory. There's going to be, and no exaggeration, there's going to be 40, maybe 50,000 screaming Yinzers for this game. And
sure.
I'm telling you, this is a big one around here. There's bad blood between these two programs, not just in football and basketball. I used to play every year. We called it the city game. Pitt backed out of it, and Duquesne's had some success since then. So, yeah, they haven't played since 1939, but it's a historical series. It's one that's actually carried a lot of significance. And then just from a pure competition standpoint, you mentioned the 40 points. I almost hate going public this at all, because what if you're wrong? But Duquesne's going to hang in this game. This is going to be a lot closer than the Pitt Panthers want it to be. Pitt struck some lightning, caught some lightning in a bottle the first 7 games of the season. Do you know who Duquesne's not bringing back this year?
Well, their quarterback is one. That's a big loss. But who else are they going to? Because that's the Coach Schmidt. The faces change, the names change, but they always have a competitive. It's Duquesne football. So the fact that you're saying play it close, where there's going to be different characters, you're not wrong, because it's the same Duquesne style. But who else are they going to be changing from last year?
That's the thing. There's not that many faces you could
Okay.
name.
All right.
You got Darius Fuentes, of course, the best quarterback in NEC, bar none, last season.
Yep.
And then Jamario Clements, late entry to the portal. But they've got 5 starting linemen back on the offensive line side, I should say.
That's the key. Yeah.
Yeah. They've got receivers coming back, Joe Isabella. They've got defensive lineman Dunkley's coming back now. They've got him back from the portal. It's just an embarrassment of riches. And when I was talking to Duquesne's staff about who they have coming back, I think they caught me like what my expression was. And they told me, oh, this is all just on paper, but this is a good team. And week one, when the P4 teams are playing maybe a little soft, they could catch a team by surprise. I think this one's going to go late into the game at least against Pitt.
I agree with you, and like you said, I'm looking forward to that environment. I'm sure Acrisure is going to be packed and wild. And like you said, for week 1, first games of the season, whenever you're playing it, that's when you can catch a team off guard when they haven't seen you, you haven't seen them, and for a team like Duquesne that like you said, they do have a lot of returning faces, especially in the trenches, offensive line, defense in particular. That's how you hang in there, and that's how you pull out upsets in these types of games. So I'm with you on that. I'm looking forward to it, and I think Duquesne's going to be very competitive in this one as well.
And I would just feel remiss if we didn't mention Central Connecticut State at UConn. Feels like a very similar type of game, right?
Well, that's the next one that I wanted to hit on, because it's going to be our first look at the defending champs, the team that beat Duquesne in that finale. I know Central has a lot of firepower returning, and they added Donovan Wadley, who's one of my favorite players of all time. I called his 3-touchdown game when it was Merrimack and Stonehill on NEC TV 2 years ago. We interviewed him on the NEC Football on the Run podcast the week after. One of the greatest interviews we ever did. So I'm excited to see him in a Central uniform, and I think he could be an X factor. And like we were just saying about Pitt, Duquesne, you're playing a big name team, but it's week 1. You have a lot of returners. Anything can happen. Central was in every single non-conference game pretty much last year too. So we'll see what happens.
And one of those was the FBS game against UMass. I mean, arguably they've added to this team this year, so I think they could hang in this one with UConn, in state rivalry as well. Take hard-hitting New Britain over to what rhymes with stores?
Doors. Floors.
Well, wars. We'll go with that.
So there you go.
Wars at stores. Any other ones jumped out to you week 1 here?
Stonehill, Sacred Heart. Stonehill has gotten the better of Sacred. Last time they were at Sacred Heart was a double overtime game that they pulled out. One of their first real big wins as a Division I program. It went back in conference play when Sacred Heart was a part of the conference. So that should be interesting. And the other half of the backyard brawl. We know Duquesne Pitt. I don't know what we're going to see from Robert Morris this year against the West Virginia team, but it would be interesting if the NEC goes in and completely, blows up the backyard brawl 2 weeks before the, Pitt and West Virginia play. That would be a fun story. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that would be a fun story if that happens.
Yeah, why not? Army is a team where I think really there's a lot up in the air here still. I think they're going to add a lot yet. So we don't really know who they're going to be taking into the Mountaineers, but it's a new coach in a sense with West Virginia too. So you never know. It's also sometimes the best chance to catch a team week 1, new coach era. We've seen a lot of FCS teams make that conquest in those situations.
Just go back to Stonehill for a second. You spurred my memory. New offensive coordinator. They had a longtime offensive coordinator depart to become a head coach, I believe at TCNJ. So now they have a new offensive coordinator come in. So how do you think Stonehill is going to fare in a new offense?
Stonehill is going to be doing a lot of different things that they hadn't done previously. We talked a little bit. There's been different personnel packages, different formations that they're going to be running out there as opposed to what they did previously. Although, of course, longtime offensive coordinator, that's tough to replace. At the same time, Stonehill returns just about everybody on offense. Really just about everybody. It's another one of those teams. And Coach Gardner has it down to how you recruit Stonehill. He does it so well. He really knows how to recruit to that school. And I think part of that is getting the kind of guys that are going to be able to pick up this new offense. And it's still Stonehill football, just going to be doing a few different personnel looks that maybe they didn't do before. Maybe you'll see a fullback this year.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, always love
Vintage,
those.
as the kids say, vintage.
All right. I mean, everything here looks great, but let's move on to week. I'm gonna say week two. Too old to
I'm
remember
with you.
the zeros. Week two on this one, and I think another good one. Hey, how about letting me go first this time? 'Cause there's one I'm really
Go
excited
for it.
about.
Go for it.
All right, I want to talk about New Haven playing at Mercyhurst. This is the first ever unofficial, right, non-conference game for New Haven. Joining the NEC, they're going to go up to Lake Erie, which hoping, fingers crossed here, we're hoping to be at that game and
Okay.
get a really good first-hand look. But New Haven's another team where they've got a lot in the transfer portal. We think they'll bring back some of those guys, but they've got this Zayon Laney at running back who you're going to love seeing this year. His game's absolutely going to translate to the D1 level, and I think he's going to have a big day. I really like their odds against having some good rushing attack during their first conference game, unofficial again, at the lake.
I was in Hurst for the first time last year for a basketball game. So I saw their football facility was under snow when I drove by, so I didn't really get a great
BJ's.
look at it. But yeah, many months of the year. But I was excited to see it, and I'm excited to see them now playing a full league schedule this year. As you mentioned, this New Haven game unofficially a part of that conference schedule, similar to what they just did. But we've seen NEC teams come in, make that leap to Division One, and have great first impressions. Mercyhurst won their opener last year in a late tight game. Stonehill, a couple of years ago before that. So can New Haven come in and make a similar jump, a similar first impression in their first game in Division One against Mercyhurst? So that's going to be a fun one. First game with a interim head coach, new coach as well for the Chargers. So that would be the one that I would pick as well.
Yeah, but I guess moving on to what else looks good, Lafayette at Stonehill. I think this is a game where Stonehill. You mentioned Sacred Heart. I think Stonehill has a chance to come into this one 1-0. I think they can come out of this one 2-0. And why that's a big deal for Stonehill is last season 1-10. They're going to be improved this year, so they have that chance to really double it up in just 2 weeks. I think Lafayette's a solid opponent. They've got a solid Sacred Heart team in week one, but these are both winnable games for sure for the Skyhawks.
And I remember talking with Coach Gardner 2 years ago before that game against Merrimack, and he was talking about getting off to a great start and how that kind of propelled them forward as they were competitive kind of the rest of that season. So I agree with you. I think if they could get that win at Sacred Heart, go back home, get a win in Lafayette, all of a sudden you're 2-0. I think all of a sudden that confidence starts to build, and that's a great boost going into conference play. The Robert Morris Youngstown State game too, like we were saying before, not quite sure what to get Robert Morris. I think if we had last year's Robert Morris team playing last year's Youngstown State team, I think Robert Morris have a great shot, just like Duquesne did, because Duquesne and Robert Morris were pretty similar in a lot of ways. But this year's Robert Morris team going to Youngstown State, that's going to answer a lot of questions one way or another. That's for sure.
Yeah, new coordinators for RME on both sides of the ball, but one of them was the old offensive coordinator for Youngstown State last season. So
there you go.
Not a lot of time in between to kind of plan your revenge game there. But yeah, the dirty little secret with that Duquesne game is that game was close, and it shouldn't have been. Duquesne had 4 offensive linemen out with injury, 4 starting offensive linemen out with injury. So the game was close, but it wasn't that Duquesne had to play our Youngstown State close to beat them, the Missouri Valley Football Conference team. No, Duquesne should have rolled even better than that, I think.
No, I agree with you.
All right, so with that, those are the ones I really wanted to key on. You have anything else exciting before we move on here?
No, I think we hit it for this week.
All right, I think this one, I'll let you go ahead and take the lead here. Your pick.
All right, so the first conference game, big conference game in the season that stands out, Central Connecticut and St. Francis. We already talked about what Central Connecticut has. I'm sure when the preseason poll comes out, they're going to be at the top, if not close to the top. They should be the preseason number one. But what does St. Francis have left for this last stand? What do they still have left in the cupboard? Coach Valerial is one of the all-time great NEC coaches. ton of respect. Like, kids want to come and play for him, even here in this last year D1 in the NEC. So can St. Francis make one last stand? A big win over the reigning champions would certainly start. It would be a great start for that. So that's one that I have my eye on, a big conference game right from the shoot here in mid-September.
Yeah, and I think last year's game, which was also, I think, week 3, kind of established the Blue Devil mythos of last season. It seemed like no matter what, they would find a way to win games. And that St. Francis game, St. Francis could have won that game. They're coming off the Kent State win. Yeah. So just so opportunistic, and you wonder if that's going to be the same identity this year. St. Francis, we know, honestly, seasonally loses a lot in the portal. Last year, their defense was, if not the best in the NEC, it was no worse than top 3. But they lose a lot of guys, except for Gino Calgera is going to be coming back. So I think that's the question, is who they're going to look like at week 3.
And do they have a quarterback, or is that something that's going to be a battle in summer?
So as of right now, I don't really know a ton about their quarterback situation, in particular them. I don't know about transfers that may have happened. So if you want to break some news, tell me if they lost Hohenstein, or they had 2 or 3 guys last year who could win games for them.
Yeah, that's it. Like they weren't able to kind of narrow down on one guy consistently. So I think that kind of hurt them on the offensive end. So it'll be interesting to see what they still have at the quarterback position, and if they can find that consistency throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, it lost their lead receiver to the portal. It looks like their lead running back, Markel Holman's, also going to be heading out. Speaking of that lead wide receiver to the portal, though, by the way, from St. Francis to Sacramento State, which Mercyhurst will be making their first jaunt out west. They do a few of those this season, coming up that same game.
And Mercyhurst is their quarterback back, correct?
Yes, and that's huge. That's the big news, I think, of the entire offseason. That was the Diego Pavia case. Got him an extra year of eligibility. So I think we may have broken that, that he had the extra year of eligibility and that he was going to come back. He's back. His brother's back. Top 3 wide receivers for Mercyhurst are back. The running back is back. That's Brian Troby. So they've got they're reloaded pretty much at the skill position on offense. And of course, Urena was phenomenal last year. He didn't get on either of the All NEC teams though, but maybe a bit of a snub in my humble opinion here.
Well, I don't think it's speaking out of school to kind of say, like, when you're not playing a full league schedule and people and some of the competition they played, I think that was kind of held against them. I don't think that was kind of a secret. But this year, if he can keep that up or take it to a next level, which there's no reason why he can't, watch out. I remember talking with him last year on our show, and he was saying, we asked him, like, what's next? And he's like, get into the real world, get a job, he gets to delay that for a year. He gets to delay life for a year just to go out and play football and have fun with his brother, like you said. So, and he's a guy that's so laid back and chill. And if anybody likes having fun, it seems like it would be him. So I'm interested to see him kind of play loose and let it all out here for this one last ride. He's going to be fun to watch this year.
Yeah, and recruiting trip for the Lakers too. They love those California JUCO players like Adam Urena. So maybe we'll get a chance to get a couple of those there.
Find the next one.
All right. Speaking of the next one, you ready to go?
I just want to hit on the LIU game because we know what Ethan Greenwood did the last time he played Sacred Heart. The quarterback sneak 50-plus yards for a touchdown.
Year, I think, right?
Yeah, 400 rushing yards for LIU. So the game against the Gators looks a little bit daunting, but going and playing Sacred Heart, that could be the game to kind of get the offense, get the ground game, get things going back at home. So this could kind of be where we start to see the first signs of what the Sharks are going to be going forward.
Yeah, I love watching Ethan Greenwood play. He's one of, I think there's 2 guys in the NEC that you watch tape on and you just burst out laughing because the guy is that good. Greenwood's one of them. The things he does for that offense, and they're going to play 2 quarterbacks again this year, by the way. But the things he does for that offense, they're so atypical. There's not a team like them in the league, and that makes them maybe with the extra year, it'd be a little bit easier. But in general, LIU is impossible to prepare for. So as they move into those conference games, the Sharks will be a problem again.
I love their offense. We've seen it for the last 2-3 years. How not just Greenwood puts it over the top, but they have fullbacks, tight ends, throwing passes, running the ball, doing all kinds of crazy routes, and then throw Greenwood in there. He could be a quarterback, a wide receiver, running back. He could be anywhere all over the field. And so the way they draw up plays and all these different wrinkles that they have, you're right, it makes them extremely dangerous. You never know where they're coming from.
Yeah, I mean I think first team all conference quarterback is going to be a discussion this year, but you got to at least have an all purpose slot for this guy because he does everything. He's going to catch a pass this year. He might return a kick this year. He's going to get on the field with the ball.
I wouldn't put it past him. That's like the conversation I had with Wadley a couple of years ago. I asked him what his position was, and he's like, football player. Because he can do it all.
That interview
was the same way.
That interview is required viewing. If you're watching this video, go look up the NEC Overtime interview with Donovan Wadley because that's the most.
Yeah, it's by all accounts, it's one of the most well-reviewed interviews we've ever done. So absolutely.
So September 20th, and there's a couple really good ones here. If I can jump in first, I like LIU at Rhode Island a ton.
I was going to say that too. Yeah, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Well, Rhode Island is a FCS playoff team last year. They actually did knock off Central Connecticut in the playoffs. Very tight game. But LIU took them and every other non-conference team they played, to be quite honest, to the wire last season.
Yeah.
They did that with Luca Stanzani, who's a great quarterback. He'll be playing again this year. Did that with him taking most of the snaps. Late in the year, about 6 games in, Ethan Greenwood starts to really take over as that guy. This year, Rhode Island's going to get Greenwood, and they barely handled just having a little bit of him during that game last year. So this year, I think the scales tip toward Long Island. I really can't wait to see what they do with that offense fully clicking now against Rhode Island this year.
If I remember correctly, that was the game that LIU really should have won, I think, right?
The truth is
they got away from them in the fourth quarter.
They start 0-6 last year. They probably could have started off like 4-2.
Yeah,
pretty easily. So you would have a harder time finding games that didn't just kind of get away from them in that early stretch up until really the quarterback change.
Right. So I'm with you. That's the one that popped my eyes when I first saw it. But then, obviously Central and Merrimack, Wadley going back to the scene of the crime. That certainly stands out too from storyline purposes. So a couple exciting games here. Still in the heart of non-conference play.
And I would point out Delaware State at St. Francis, if for no other reason than that's another one of those schools that has kind of gone to. I think Clinton Portis is an assistant running back coach.
Really?
There. And then now I'm gonna look like a total loser if I'm blanking on this name. It's a former Eagles wide receiver. I'm gonna go ahead and say Brian Dawkins, but I could have that wrong. Is their head coach there now? Say again.
Is it Deshaun Jackson? Yeah,
that's it. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so they've gone ahead and had him as the head coach. Clinton Portis in that DMV area is the running back coach. So that's a program that's always kind of been down, doing some really exciting things. But it's also a game St. Francis won in dramatic fashion last year. So
yeah.
Getting them in Loretto, I think that one could be a lot of fun to watch.
The NEC played Delaware State. There was another NEC team, I think, that played Delaware State last year. Yeah. So the Delaware State familiar with NEC for sure, but we've been saying, it's a different Delaware State team this year with the new staff, and certainly the NEC teams like St. Francis are going to be different as well. So it'll be interesting to watch, that's for sure.
And then just want to throw a quick bone to New Haven here again, just because this is the first Division I game on the blue. We got blue turf in the league this year.
There you go.
Saginaw Valley State University comes in town. They're from Michigan, if you were looking that up on your bingo card. They're going to come play on the blue and give them their first D1, although that's a D2 team, home game.
Now, I'm excited. I am a fan of the blue turf, Boise State. I don't know about the red turf like they have, out west, but
Yeah,
the
hard
blue
to.
turf, yeah, blue turf. I'm a fan of. I've heard from some NEC football people. Jury's still out. I'm okay with it. I'm excited to see it, over the course of the season.
No, I will personally campaign to keep the blue turf in if
Yeah.
that's what it'll take. Right. I didn't know we had to have a hashtag for that, but we will. All right. September 27th, and this is the first time it narrows down. It's going to continue at about this level where there's only about 4 or 5 games per week moving forward here, which makes it a little bit easier for us. Anything that really jumped out to you here?
Just New Haven, Duquesne. We talked about New Haven. You kind of dipping their toe in, these first couple games, but this is the first real big test against the team that was just about the NEC champions last year. So we talked about Duquesne always being a strong program under Coach Schmidt, very consistent, especially on the defensive side of the football. So how does New Haven kind of measure up? This is kind of like a measuring stick game. So a lot of questions will be answered here on September 27th.
Yeah, for sure. Jerry Schmidt's been there only 21 years now, so he's
only 20.
Yeah, only 21. So one of the younger coaches in the league for sure there. But he doesn't keep count. Only his sports information department does. How about Norfolk State? That's another celebrity coach. Do you know this one?
Oh, is that's Mike Vick?
You got it. Mike Vick is the head coach at Norfolk State, and this one's kind of fun just because most non-conference games years ahead of time, a year ahead of time. No one knew this one till Wagner dropped the schedule. I mean, this was absolutely no one had this game coming. No one knew it was scheduled.
Now,
So
was this just added in when Vic took over, or was this already on the books?
So it looked like I was told about it right when the schedule dropped, and I think it must have happened like in the probably days, weeks leading up to the schedule release for Wagner. So this would be a Mike Vick era edition.
I like it. It's to bring the guys to New York. I'm sure it's certainly a good recruiting trip for his program, and I'm sure a lot of Wagner people in the stands, maybe even on the field, will have their autograph pen and paper ready if they still do that old school autographs like that.
Yeah, well, and this is a marquee game for Wagner. There's going to be a lot of eyes on Norfolk State this year, and this is a fun chance to really have a lot of people. For one thing, check out NEC Front Row, and another thing, they're going to get to see Wagner football and get people that maybe are just following along because they love Madden 2004.
Doesn't, first of all, but for Wagner, what's your sense of their team going into this season? Because they've always kind of been, at least the last couple of years, like hit or miss. They have like some superstars, some good, really good first team all conference type players at skill positions. They were able to win some games, but at the other hand, they're not winning like the big games still. So where do you kind of see Wagner measuring? They take another step forward this year, or they kind of stay in the area that they've really been recently?
Well, for them to take a step forward, someone has to take a step back, is my answer for you there, I guess. I think what Coach Massell is building is, I hate that it's flying under the radar, because you look at what Wagner looked like when he got there, and slowly he recruits well. He recruits Florida exceptionally well, and has just each year that team's gotten better. Now this year it's tough because you lose Jalen Benelli as your real big name that's kind of gone out to the portal, but they're bringing back Terry McDonald at wide receiver. I think he's at worst second team All NEC coming into the year. And then they've got Logan Barnes coming back at defensive tackle. He's an absolute monster. I would say he single-handedly gave St. Francis nightmares last season. So there's still that top-level talent. I think how they recruit in general is strong, and I think they recruit well actually against other conference teams, which is always a good barometer. So if I'm in my head, I guess, looking at who I think is going to be the top 3 or top 4 in the NEC, I would say Wagner's looking like they're going to be right at that probably midway point. But it's hard for me to say that and say they'll be at the same area because I think they're getting better every season. I feel like I see it every year.
The key for them has always been turnovers on defense, sometimes returning them for scores directly, and then handing it over to the run game. Last year, I did a Wagner game for NEC TV, and they ran all over Stonehill last year. So if they could get the ground game going and force turnovers, that sets up nicely for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I definitely, and I just really like the talent level that they keep bringing in there. I don't want to belabor the point besides to say Wagner, you look at how Coach Masel's first couple of years unfolded and just how much better they are now. It really is a night and day program where this year, if you talked to me in December and Wagner had won the conference, I would not be shocked. And 2 years ago, it would have been unthinkable.
Exactly.
Okay, so those are the ones for that this week here, September 27th, New Haven Duquesne and Norfolk Wagner. Moving to October, spooky season. I will point out one that always tends to be spooky for me, and that's every time Stonehill plays Duquesne, it can get wild.
Yep.
Stonehill leads that series right now, 2-1. They beat them the first 2 years they're in the league, and last year when Stonehill was not their best team, they were very young. One of their better games was against Duquesne. They played them pretty close.
I've talked with Duquesne players. I've talked with Duquesne coaches over the last couple years, and they very much know about that series that you just mentioned. They very much know that. Last year it was a mission. Like they were possessed to take. We're taking this game seriously. We're not going to slip up like we did the year before. So we'll see if Duquesne can keep that kind of focus against Stonehill. I think you were just mentioning the top 3 or 4 teams. We know Duquesne's going to be up there towards the top of the list. Stonehill's probably trying to get. We want to be in there too. So this could be a big game for them to kind of break through and get towards the top.
Yeah, and with the conference games, you kind of never know how important they'll be till you're in the meat of it. Like right now, I don't know how important November games will be, but I'll have a better idea in October. This is one of those games. Good.
No, go ahead.
This is one of those games that's going to tell us a lot about what November is going to mean. Stonehill, you look at how they lost games, what their scores were. It's not fantastic, but this is a program that did exceptional in the weight room this off season. And again, they've got all these guys coming back. They've got Charles Battaglia, they've got Zach Athey, and then they've got their quarterback now. We remember last year, I think the first time I ever talked to you, we were talking about Asher Karaha. He's moving on, but they played 3 or 4 guys last year at that spot. So you work out the kinks in the down year, and I think now they've kind of got their team together here.
Have you seen, and we'll see it coming up, but have you seen Duquesne's schedule for like the last 2-3 weeks?
Yeah, I have.
It's like a murderer's row. Like all the big games are at the end. So if like you said, the games at the end aren't as important if they slip up early on. So if they drop this Stonehill game, the end of the season, those couple games that we're going to get to looks completely different if Duquesne loses this one to Stonehill. So just something to keep in mind as we go forward.
Yeah, and I think the question of do we take Stonehill seriously is answered this day, because I think they're going to look better in those preceding weeks. But if they're very competitive, or if we know they're good at beating Duquesne, if they're able to do it again, suddenly I think we have to say this is a contender. This could be a team that takes home a banner. Not yet going to be a team that can make the FCS playoffs, but you can still get to hang a banner if you win it in the regular season.
Yep.
So did you have one beyond that before I jump into another one?
Central Sacred Heart, always a good rivalry. LIU Mercyhurst, there could be a lot of points scored in that game.
Yes.
that could be a fun one to watch. So this could be a fun week to kick off October.
And actually, LIU's, we know what they do on offense, but they do return some guys defensively too. We know DQ Watkins is coming back. He's probably going to be first team. I think we just got a really good clip mashup by Brian Govin, who does a lot of our NEC Blitz film review. I'll probably be tweeting out tomorrow. So, And then we've got Rafael Fasolino at linebacker, a guy we really liked in a few games last year. So I use defense maybe sneaky good this year too. So October 11th, we mentioned Duquesne starting to get into a murderer's row a little bit later in the season here, but they've got an in-state rivalry game here. A couple other good games coming up in this one.
LIU Stonehill, again, that could be very interesting. Two teams trying to take that next step to be serious title contenders. Central Robert Morris, that was a fun game last year.
Yes.
That was a big part of Central Connecticut getting to that championship. So it'd be interesting to see the rematch in Moon Township.
Yeah, that's my pick for game of the year last year, for one thing. That was a game where I was very closely following Duquesne Wagner, which was happening at the same time. Duquesne's pulling away, and then RMU was up a couple scores on Central. So you start thinking, because if that happened, if RMU won and Duquesne won, Duquesne wins the conference, and that's it. Central not only comes back, they not only force overtime, they win in the second overtime because the ball gets, absolutely rocketed, hits off of the offensive lineman's helmet, goes in the air, caught. Thank goodness for big heads, I think was kind of the joke coming out of the Central camp after that. But just what a team of destiny they were at that game in particular.
Once that happened, the bounce is literally going their way. I think we all kind of knew where the final game was going to go, how that was going to go. But you're right. It started with that comeback against Robert Morris. So it'll be interesting to see him a little bit earlier than the game was last year on October 11th, but still a big game in the conference schedule nonetheless.
And I think a different game this year too, just because Brady Olson's I think he's started over 30 games at college level at this point. You're not supposed to be able to do that. It's not something that happens here. But he's done it. So I don't think going into Moon Township is going to really shake him. I like this Central team, and if we don't know it's coming from RMU just yet, I think it'll be a different looking game this coming season.
We talked with Brady last year on our show, and he was just so calm, cool, collected, confident, everything like you said you would expect from a leader who's been, in a bunch of college football games in his career. So Central definitely has the right captain, the right quarterback, and the fact that he's returning, that just, again, solidifies the type of contender that Central Connecticut's going to be this year.
And just talk to me real quick. You've seen St. Francis and Duquesne play over the years. Many times. This is it. This is the last time you think you're going to get the chance to see it. What's it kind of been like seeing those two in-state, kind of a rivalry game over the years?
It starts with the coaching. Coach Schmidt, Coach Valerio, again, two of the greatest NEC coaches. Usually, out there in Western Pennsylvania, especially those years that Robert Morris was no longer in the league, in order to win a championship, one of those teams have to go through the other one if they're going to get to the championship. So it's going to be somewhat bittersweet, a little melancholy seeing these two teams play for the last time, but definitely one to have circled on the calendar for sure.
All right. So let's take it to October the 18th. You got 4 to pick from here only. And truthfully, this is one of those weeks where it's like, okay, you got 3 conference games, and then you've got Stonehill taking on an Ivy League opponent. But let's talk about Duquesne at Mercyhurst for a minute, because that was probably the closest Duquesne game up until that absolutely wild season finale against Central Connecticut State. Mercyhurst was leading at half.
If I remember correct, that was an NEC TV game. I think I remember Paul Dottino was calling that one out in it was at Duquesne, I think.
That was on the Bluff, yeah.
Yeah, so they did play him close, and now the quarterback's back. Should be interesting. Should be an interesting game for sure.
Yeah, again, I think Duquesne is going to remember that one from last year. You never expect any team to take anything lightly, especially not Duquesne, but they're going to remember that.
At the same time, I don't think Mercyhurst is going to be intimidated.
No, I mean they went toe to toe with that team. Finished the year ranked. Duquesne
Yeah.
got snubbed out of the playoff spot. I thought we could have had 2 teams in, but Mercyhurst. I mean, they didn't not only played with them, they had the lead and played defensively. Probably the strongest game they had all year. So it's fun to see a sequel. Craig, I don't know if you noticed, by October in Erie, it's cold. It's going to be a cold day up there.
You're not lying. There could be snow at this point. Who knows?
Definitely possible. It gets cold on the bluff. Yeah, it's a windy place, but the wind blows in off the lake up in Erie. Man, I'm gonna try to get my visit to Mercyhurst this year early in the season. Duquesne
I was there. I was there last year, February, for basketball. We got the lake effect snow. I came in from Buffalo. Pam Roker came in from Cleveland, and that whole all of that was all affected. There wasn't escape to the east or to the west. It was all affected.
And then I would point out RMU at LIU just because that was another one of those really fun games last year. Every game LIU played in the second half of the year, by the way, was like the most fun football game you've probably ever seen.
It was the Greenwood effect.
Yeah, it was. I mean, he ran for well over 100, and I remember just watching him. I was in the press box for that game and turning to the sports information director and saying, like, how does he do this? How does he get out of everything? Actually, one of the plays that game turned on, because LIU had a fourth quarter lead, was a sack, scoop and score on Greenwood. So all players giveth and taketh away, but he was what you will remember coming from that game for sure.
What I remember talking with him last year, he's a very humble kid. Like he wanted his receiver, Michael Love, to come and be a part of the interview too. He didn't want to, be up there talking by himself. So humble kid. Didn't want kind of all the spotlight on him. But I think a lot of spotlight will be on him this year. So I think that's going to be an interesting way to see how that develops.
Well, Michael Love, of course, went off to one or two rookie mini camps for the NFL. And then Ludovico Choquette, who played a big role in that game, went to the CFL. He was drafted.
Yeah, so, I saw that.
Let's take it over to October 25th. We're getting there. And check my... Okay. So I liked RMU St. Francis here. I feel like I talk about RMU a lot. Well, Yinzer effect, but this is another one of those games where they played this even non-conference, Craig. And, you don't want to see this one go, but this is Bobby Moe's last time in Loretto.
It reminds me of the Battle of Brooklyn in basketball with St. Francis, Brooklyn, and LIU. And unfortunately with that, we didn't know that it was the last Battle of Brooklyn until after the fact was over, when St. Francis discontinued their athletic program. At least now we know going in that this is like we get one last chance to enjoy it here. They've had some classic battles, both in conference and, as you said, out of conference. So I'm looking forward to seeing them go at it one more time. I'm very thankful we get a chance to see them go at it one more time in football.
Yeah, I remember driving past there and realizing this is the last time I'm getting to drive to Nowheresville, which at that point it was already that had been coined. And if you make that drive from the west, you pass a barbecue joint with a giant pig sitting on the top of it called Clem's. And I just remember looking at that pig and like feeling sad that I was not going to see the Clem's pig again. So realignment affects all of us, unfortunately. And this is one of those ones where we lose something.
Affects our stomachs too, apparently.
Yeah, it's okay barbecue. I wouldn't tell you to go out of your way.
Okay.
But if you're in the Loretto neighborhood, it's not too far.
Now, this is the time of year, end of October, where everybody kind of sees where things are going. Like usually the top of the standings are kind of packed like they were last year. We had a 3-team race, but you could kind of see, okay, we see where things are coming to a head. The last couple of years, everything's been decided in the last game of the season. And at this point, end of October, you could kind of look ahead at the calendar and say, okay, we see where this is going here. So I'm just wondering, when we get to October 25th and all these games are completed, do we have that same vision, or are things so crazy this year that it's up for grabs and anybody has it, and we don't have a clear picture of where it's going. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, last 3-4 years, you get to October 25th, you kind of know where things are going down. So we've seen like Merrimack, they were on their winning streak. Okay, they're going to be on a showdown with St. Francis in the fall. Okay, Duquesne, they're going to be in a showdown at the. So you can kind of see where it's going at this point. I'm interested to see if that's the same thing this year.
Yeah, and I was thinking Duquesne RMU, I think, around this point last year, because Central Connecticut was at this point winning in such unbelievable ways. It felt like, well, this isn't going to last. This isn't going to, but. And I feel like I'm selling them short by saying that, because there's definitely a skill to winning football games, and they were a talented team. They were.
It was right around when they got to the beginning of November, and you saw, okay, the last 2 games on their schedule, like you could kind of see, well, if they win those 2 games, so it was right around here where you kind of started taking them seriously.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're gonna end up being around this time. It's gonna be, okay, well, if Duquesne beats Wagner, or if, okay, Stonehill, are they for real? If they can go up to Erie and win there. This is one of those ones where we're looking at these and saying, this is a week where probably it's going to be, we'll find out when we get there.
Yeah.
But once you hit November, I think, for me at least, seeing New Haven going to Sacred Heart, I like the storyline here. For me, it's new blood versus, I guess, old departing blood. I want to see New Haven win. I want to see an in-state battle here, but
as much as people want to see them win, but
yeah, they're transitioning. But I want to feel like, this is really and I think in the long term that is how we're going to feel for sure. But it's going to be interesting to see if it happens in 2025.
Wagner, St. Francis have had some crazy games over the years. LIU, Central Connecticut. That central defense, can they stop Greenwood? Can they stop all the wrinkles in the LIU offense? That could be maybe a speed bump if Central's surging towards their final couple games. This game against LIU could be a speed bump for them, so we'll see.
I'm glad you brought that up, just because I think this can be 2 things. One, I think a sneaky good game, but then more than anything else, I think this could be like a very surprising defensive battle, because you look at Donovan Wadley and Elijah Howard, and then you're looking at Ethan Greenwood, of course, and just kind of, you expect points. Long Island gets on the field, there's points. Central Connecticut's done more than rebuilt. They've really added on to what they could do on offense. You expect this, but then Sherrod Watkins for Central Connecticut State, Jack Stoll for Central Connecticut State, Dylan Merrill, I don't think I brought up earlier, as a fine defensive back for Long Island. There's actually a lot of really good defensive players in this game. And oh my gosh, I didn't even mention Christopher Jean yet. We're in November. This could be one of those games where we're looking at it now and saying, all right, points. And we get there, and this might be a 10-7. This might be a late 4th quarter, something finally breaks kind of game.
The things we haven't talked about yet, it applies to these 2 teams in particular, special teams. Over the last couple of years, they've had the better kickers. They've had the better return games. Central, I think they lost their kicker. So that's going to be a new setup this year. But they got help in the return game with Wadley, like we mentioned. LIU certainly has explosive returners. So kickers, punters, return, field position, all those things, in addition to the defense, could be a key to the outcome of this one, I think.
Yeah, and we're talking about football in June, so already we're really into this stuff. But then also, just that makes me excited because, Will Lynch is coming back for Long Island. He's probably the best punter in the league this year, against the best return man in the league right now. So, these things matter. They swing football games, and with these 2 teams, with the level of talent here, these swing championships. And November 8th, getting even thicker into league play here. And again, this is just one of those situations where you start saying, okay, what's going to be important? But Mercyhurst, St. Francis, that was a big game last year.
That was we thought it was a new rivalry, so the new rivalry is coming to an end here, but that should be a good one. LIU, if they're going to make a run, it's set up for them. Beat Central the week before, then beat Duquesne at home. All of a
Nothing
sudden,
to it.
yeah, just, they could be making their run here at the end. Again, it's so interesting, like we said earlier in the show, how these schedules for a lot of different teams are coming to a head here as we get closer and closer to Thanksgiving. But that certainly makes it more exciting. Stonehill Central, that's going to be an exciting one as well, I think. So a lot of good, juicy games here on the schedule on November the 8th.
Yeah, and Mercyhurst, of course, they're hoping to reprise their first Division One victory against the Red Flash. It was 21-20 up in Erie last season to close out the year. They get a chance to see if they can finish the series 2-0. But Stonehill, Central Connecticut, I don't want to, I guess, be too hard on this here, but Stonehill is bringing everyone back. I like this team. Coach Gardner told me last year.
Their OC is a Central alum.
So there you go. Actually, the Central Connecticut State AD as well has that New Haven connection, although they don't get to play this year. That family, that Central Connecticut State, I guess, family has a lot going on here. And then
it's the former Stonehill quarterback.
There you go. And yeah, he was a Stonehill alum. So nice it's all in the family. I guess that would be a pretty interesting matchup to see, even if it ends up not being huge in league standings. And as far as throwing out the standings, Merrimack and New Haven, I want to throw out here real fast just because that is the final game of New Haven season. A little early on November 8th, but they got their 10 games in. Pretty good job to get a schedule together like that, and they get to close it out on the blue.
I know that you had a chance to talk with the people at New Haven, their athletic director, I believe. So what was the process like for them to completely redo their schedule, like kind of like at a moment's notice, like, oh, we're making this transition, so scrap the old one, we got to put together a new one. What was that like?
Well, I can tell you they hadn't slept.
I'm sure.
Devin Crosby, who's also throughout here, a Western Pennsylvania guy. We actually went to rival high school, as it turns out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was cool.
Hopefully he treated you nice.
Well, we weren't there together, but I think my team was winning in those days. We'll say that. But he had at that point just found out the NE10 schedule was not happening. They weren't going to let them keep those games. So it's connections. It's reaching out to people. He knew the athletic director at Albany, was very close with them. We initially thought they were going to get a game against Stonehill, but I think at that point, like I said, he hadn't slept. It looks like that was actually Sacred Heart. And we're just looking at teams out west, down south. Thought they were going to get an Ivy League game. So what I was getting, I guess, from talking with him there and then seeing how the schedule actually came out, they must have had 30, 40 irons in the fire. Like, no kidding.
Wow.
So you get to a point where I guess you get 10 games, you kind of fill as many open dates as you can and pick the best ones you can. And honestly, in that situation, ending up with 4 home games at all, pretty fair effort. Hate that they lost the Southern Connecticut State game, though. They're on a 16-game run on their arch rivals there.
It's always tough when those longtime rivalries go away, but that's unfortunately the part of today's college athletics with all the moving and shaking.
And if you're going to lose your longtime rival, go out on a 16-game winning streak.
Absolutely, there you go.
Yeah, and get up for Central next year. I can tell you the Central fans did not seem very happy about New Haven coming in. So I can't wait to see that start to develop over the next couple of years. November the 15th, and one's jumping out at me real fast here. I'm going to let you see if you're eyeing up the same one I am here.
Central Duquesne.
Absolutely. What else could it be?
That's the one I think that we're waiting for all year. Obviously, there's a lot of results before that, as we talked about, in order to get to November 15th to make it a little bit more special. But I think either way, there's going to be something on the line in that game, and just throw the storyline off as to what happened at the end of last season. with Central coming back and kind of taking that auto bid away from the Dukes. So that's going to be a fun one, even without any of the standings in mind. But if we get to November 15th and these teams are 1-2 or tied for 1 or close to the top, that's just going to make it even more special.
Yeah, definitely. And Duquesne did do pretty well quarterback here. They added Tyler Riddell from Gardner-Webb. He's previously at East Tennessee State. This is another one of those guys who's played a million games at the college level. So you can't replace Darius Parentes. It's not that easy.
One of the all-time great quarterbacks in program history.
Yeah, and
they don't grow those on trees. Yeah.
Hard to find him. He was in Mark McGuire's Sammy Sosa race last year at the Adam Urena and touchdown passes. Yeah. Like, this isn't going to happen every year, but have two of these quarterbacks late game. This could have conference title, not just implications. This could be the game, and they've played a million games. No one's going to blink. So I'm already kind of shaken just thinking about this rematch that we're going to have in the Bluff this year.
Get some elements, maybe get some rain, some snow this time of year. That could be fun. That could be fun.
Let's get it sloppy out there on Rooney Field. And I guess the other one you look at, any other sloppy conditions here, it's going to snow in Mercyhurst. We know that, but it gets cold. Staten Island that time of year. Stonehill versus Wagner could be nice if the main event's Central Duquesne. We could be talking about the second tier here of Stonehill and Wagner, just depending on how both those programs have developed over this offseason. November 15th, there aren't bad games at this point. These are all the thick of it conference games.
Absolutely. Now, we'll find out in a moment when we go to the next week, but does St. Francis play at home the next week, or is this their final NEC home game? All right, so this is the end of the road for them at home at the Gall Field in the NEC. So they're welcoming the Sharks, who could be having title implications for themselves by this time. So that could be one, if not just for sentimental purposes, certainly for NEC title purposes perhaps as well.
Yeah, and the Gall Field it's not something where you think of it like Wrigley Field or something like that. It's a great place to play football. Loretto is a beautiful place, man, to drive to. And just
look, I was there calling football games 20 years ago for Monmouth Radio before they renovated the entire thing. The press box was like at an angle off to the side. It was like in the middle of the woods. It was not as nice as it is now. I know they've certainly built it up over the years. So credit to them, but it's going to be an emotional day watching that. I'm sure this will be the senior day for them on November 15th against LIU. So that's going to be it's going to be tough to watch. It's going to be a little bittersweet.
It definitely will be, and there's a lot of people there. I'm going to miss getting the chance to work with too. So all the best to them in the PAC next year, and hopefully they can beat my wife's alma mater, Grove City, up in there.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get some juice going here for them now for the Wolverines. And then there's no tomorrow on November 22nd. This is the big one, and this is the best thing NEC has done this entire season, this entire year. This schedule is this week, because you got two of them. You got Wagner versus LIU, second consecutive year. They put it at the end of the year. And then Duquesne at RMU. Of course, this is the last game of the year. This should always be the last game of the year. You can't win a championship if you're Duquesne unless you can beat the cross-city rivals in the final game of the year, and unless you can win the battle of the boroughs brawl. Wagner, LIU, you shouldn't get a chance to go to the playoffs either.
Even the Mercyhurst Central game, like that could be a sneaky good game too. With Mercyhurst a year better now. So if the title doesn't get clinched the week before and it comes down to the last week like it has the last couple of years,
it usually does.
It usually does. I don't know if we get the winner take all game that we've had like the last 3 years in a row, but there could be like 3 games that have title implications going on simultaneously. So that could be really interesting. We'll have to get all our devices ready, all the screens at the same time. So this could be an interesting Saturday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and I'll likely be in Moon Township on that day, so I'll have the tablet. I'll probably have a laptop too. It'll be looking like one of those movies with the thread going between the pictures up in the press box there, trying to figure out who's winning what. I mean, it's it happens. Feels like more often than not. That was the way it was in the old Big East as well. Even if there's no championship game, usually you end up having one anyway, and that's where we've been the last couple of years.
Yeah, so I think if we do have a winner take all game, probably the Duquesne Robert Morris game would be that. But I think we're more likely this year to have like I said, 3 games going on, 2 games going on at the same time with title implications here on this last Saturday.
See, hey, one more thing here. Wagner versus LIU. There's a bridge that connects Staten Island and Long Island. Apparently, there's only one. So we're gonna have to get a piece of that bridge, Craig, and start giving it to the winning team. What do you think? Do I take that up with the athletic departments or?
With that, I think there should be more trophy games, especially in the NEC. It's tough because once you establish a rivalry, the rival's gone to another conference. It's tough to establish that, but I like the way you're thinking. I've said that for a long. Ever since we lost the Battle of Brooklyn in basketball, where there was like an actual trophy that they gave or a plaque that they gave to the winning team and kept for the entire year. I think we need more than that. So whether it's a piece of the bridge for the winner of LIU Wagner, a slice of pizza for the winner of the Central Connecticut New Haven games going forward. Like I don't know. We need something. I'm with you.
We have to have, well,
a steel beam for the winner of Duquesne Robert Morris.
Now you're talking. They used to play for a steel beam around these parts, not Duquesne and RMU. It was a 3-way trophy, but steel beams are part of what we do around here. It's.
I just made that up. I figured.
You knew, yeah. There's always a steel beam, right? And then of course that is St. Francis's last official game in the conference. In last game in FCS football, provided that they don't win the conference outright and make it up to the playoffs, which would, of course, extend that streak just 1-2 games longer.
Yeah. Like you said, the week after this, you have your Thanksgiving, you have the Black Friday, and then you get to the FCS playoffs. The last couple of years has certainly been interesting for Northeast Conference teams representing the league in the FCS. We have had NEC teams go and win FCS games before. It's been a while, but it's happened. So, and as we talked about at the very start of this conversation, NEC teams are getting more and more competitive in these non-conference games. So, whichever team does represent the league in the FCS this year, I think it's going to be quite the battle. I think it's going to be very competitive going forward on the national scene.
Yeah, only getting tighter at this level of football. And Craig, I appreciate you giving me all this time tonight. I know you're a busy guy, so I really appreciate you giving me that, and loved having this conversation with you. We should have more of these.
Yeah. This was awesome. It gets me excited for the start of camps and the start of football season. And yeah, when it gets closer, we should definitely do this again. You should come on my show, so we could do it reverse.
It's a deal. I'll be doing that. I'd be happy to.
Awesome.
Right.
Looking forward to it.
All right, this is NEC Blitz. We've had Craig D'Amica, the voice of the NEC Overtime Pod, which is the best pod for NEC football, bar none. He's been with us. Thank you so much, and we will check you guys later.